Hey guys, we're back. You saw the title. Is human design in the Bible? Stick around, let's find out.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Hey folks, so we're back again with another episode, Outcome Control Business Solutions. I am your host, life and business coach, Dwayne Alleyne, guys. And today we're going to be diving into the Bible and to see if human design is in the Bible. Because what we believe across here, folks, is that outcome control is about helping people overcome obstacles by making high quality decisions that will ultimately control the outcome of their life. Because we believe better quality decisions would lead to a better quality of life. And so this particular topic is very dear to my heart, and there's no way I can encapsulate all of it. So I think I might probably have to do a series and maybe an ongoing sessions with covering different people in the Bible. And just to answer the question, guys, obviously human design will not be in the Bible because the fact that we don't have the data where the time and the location where people were born, and of course the software that we have wouldn't even be able to measure that. But the idea of going back into the Bible is to basically see when people are aligned to who they are, who they were truly meant to be, they make high quality decisions, better quality decisions, and that obviously affects their life. It affects how their life turn out, the people that's around them, all of those different things. And these things are very significant. And I look at the human design as a tool. It's an invention. It's a human technology, I like to call it. No different than the technology of a cell phone or a television or a microwave, right? It's a technology that you can use to make your life better. That is the point. Just as you have a cell phone that can make your life better. I know some people talk about the person who would have came up with the human design and how he heard voices and all of these different things. But the idea here is, guys, that every single invention is an idea that somebody had, right? A voice spoke to somebody and gave them the idea to create cell phones, right? So a voice spoke to somebody, told them how to create a television, or how to invent a television, or to invent a radio or a microwave. Every single idea is a voice that talks to somebody. At the point, the idea is that does the idea makes people's lives better, or does it affect people's life negatively? And what we are seeing with this design, guys, is actually helping people get on the right track, helping people discover who they are, how they were truly meant to function, and really and truly at the crux of it is how to go about making great decisions. Because at the end of the day, the guy who made the cell phones, we don't know if he was a Satan worshipper. The guy who invented the car, we don't know if he was a devil worshipper, but we use those things today. And how ridiculous it will be if we turn around and say, hey, well, I'm an idol worshipper because I'm worshiping my car because I drive it every day. Or I use my phone, like all throughout the day I'm using my phone. So am I an idol worshipper? Am I worshiping my phone? Am I worshiping this technology? The idea is, guys, we're using a technology that's going to make our lives better. So we're not worshiping a man who invented it. We're just saying, hey, that's a real good idea. Can I use that idea to make my life better? Right? That's the point. That's the point there. I'm going to put our pin inside of there. So what we're going to do, we're going to, of course, look at some scriptures, and I'll try to keep this short. I'll probably come back around and probably do some other people in there, because when you look at, different patriarchs, different prophets, God dealt with all of them, differently in terms of how they interacted with God, etc., etc. And it just goes to show how unique each and every one of them were. And, you'd be suspect that, these guys got into alignment with would be the principles of which God would have wanted them to walk in, so that they can now be, in a sense, be accurate, right? If that's so important. So, yeah, so the fact is that when you look at the Bible, and again, the Bible is my book, right? There's a lot of different sects, or what you call different quote unquote religious people. We call them denominations. I don't look at those things. Some people also will look at the fact that, in the Bible they talk about, the children of Israel, and it's a story about a nation that God chose above every other nation that's in the Bible. and that nation was designed to fulfill certain purposes in the earth, and they obviously would have failed at it. And because of that particular failure, God sent, his son, and his task was to redeem Israel, but also redeem the entire world. Because once Christ is not here, the world that we live in will be continue to be plagued. It will be continue to be disease filled. It will be continue to have hatred, anger, racism, jealousy, etc. All the negative things in society that we see. And even if Christ comes back and he establishes a structure of putting Israel in its proper place, and then all the other nations are under, I could guarantee the fact that um, a lot of these people, whether they were wicked or evil or whatever, they have to now quote unquote batten their crease, right? And they will now have to live righteous lives. And if they don't, well, there's a destruction that comes because of that. And so we believe as believers that God sent Christ and he confirmed it by raising him from the dead, 3 days and 3 nights. And he was seen by many people, and he ascended into heaven, and now he's at the right hand of the Father making intercession for us, so that we as believers in the earth would live righteous lives, become mature, and basically make the right decisions at the right time, so that God's purposes will be fulfilled in the earth. All right, so I know that was a mouthful there, and there's a lot of things that we know, and there's a lot of things definitely that we don't know. But what we do know is that God has given us commandments, he has given us laws, he has given us things that we ought to do now while we are waiting on his return, and it's our responsibility to have personal integrity with those things and do it to the best of our ability, right? The best of our ability. And again, nobody could judge another man's process, whatever that might be. We are all open to correction because we're humble, but at the end of the day, every man has to work out his own salvation with fear and trembling. Right? So I know I've said a lot there. I want to dive into this particular topic because I love it, and I'll probably have to continue it on another one. All right. So the first place I would love to start off on is, of course, Genesis. And now I'm going to be using the King James version because that obviously is the closest translation to the Hebrew and the Greek. And what we're also going to do is look at words as well too, and what they actually mean. And because we're talking about human design, and a significant part of human design is whether or not celestial bodies have a certain level of control of man and his affairs. That's a significant part of the human design. There's also some quantum physics inside of there as well too, as well as genetics, as well as ancient Chinese systems, ancient Indian systems, or what we call Asian systems, as well as biblical spiritual systems that this gentleman, Robert Alan Krakoa, aka Ra, right, that he would have used to pull all of these things together to basically chart out some of the things that define a person, what is their best strategy in terms of making decisions. And like I said, it's a great invention, just like a cell phone for me, that I can use to make and enhance my life. All right, so that's what we're doing. That's what we're talking about. But I like to go back to the foundations just to make sure that I am not going off of a bridge too quick or too fast, and not putting my trust or confidence in a system that doesn't line up with who I believe I truly am in terms of spiritually, because I don't want to violate those things. And I know there are people out there who are looking at the human design and they are wondering about, does this line up with God, etc., etc. And interestingly enough, when you look at a cell phone, we don't ask those questions, right? And I don't say that the guy who invented the cell phone is a devil worshipper, but you could imagine there are probably many inventions that we have that we use today that to enhance our lives that will probably created by somebody who is a Satan worshipper, right? So we don't know, right? And I'm not putting anything on anybody, but the point is we don't know. All right. So we're starting off at Genesis 1:1. So the reason why I'm coming here, because of course the Bible covers, of course, creation, the birth of a nation, God selecting that nation, wanted them to obtain a standard, which they did not And then, of course, because they didn't sustain that standard, they went into captivity, and then they served years and years and years and years of captivity, all the way until the Dark Ages, and which there is some history inside of there where they started to kind of emerge, but then went back into quote unquote slavery, and they are scattered all over the world today. And there's this big debate on who are the children of Israel. Are they the slaves that were on the west coast of Africa that came across to the Caribbean and the Americas? Were they the native American Indians that were conquered by the Spaniards and were taken as slaves all through Europe and Spain? There's a debate on that. There's a debate whether or not the people that are in Israel right now are the children. There's a lot of debates happening. The point is, this is my point, and this is what I'm coming from. Let's read what the Word of God says, do what it says to the best of our ability. When Christ comes back, He's going to sort all of that out, and whoever He decides to elevate and whoever He decides to put down, I am okay with that. Right? And I hope you're okay with that too. All right? So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the reason why I'm coming here is because I want to look at this word heaven, because this is a significant thing, right? So the Hebrew word for heaven is shamayim or shema, and is described as the second form being dual of an unused singular, from an unused root meaning to be lofty, the sky, as aloft, the dual perhaps alluding to the visible arch in which the clouds move, as well as the higher ether where celestial bodies revolve. It says air, astrologer, the heavens. So there's that word astrologer. And so some people they sort of wink at astrology, but there it is, right? And I could assume here that even the heavens is described as an astrologer. And we'll also look at the meaning of astrology so that we'll be clear on it. And again, to me, it's like a science, just like biology or chemistry. We don't worship these things. It's just a tool, right? It's just information, it's just knowledge that we could either use to our advantage or we don't use it. Either way, if you want to use it to enhance your life, great. If not, no problem. There's no judgment here. All right? Okay, so let's go to another scripture here, and then we'll look up the definition after. I want to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and we're going to be looking at 1 and 2, right? And it says here, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Now, the word heaven is the same word there, right? So, for everything, there's a season and there is a time and a purpose for everything under heaven, under the celestial bodies. All right, let me just peep at this word under. All right, so under, it means from the same as, it's takaf, from the same as H8430, the bottom as depressed, right? So as the bottom as depressed, only adverbially below, often with prepositional prefix underneath in lieu of, etc. Beneath, right? Beneath the heaven, beneath the celestials. Flat, same, a place, room, forsake, stead, under, when, was mine, whereas, for, with. So the idea here is that when the Bible says under heaven, every like it says, everything, there is a season and a time to every purpose under the celestial bodies, under the astrologer. Right? And I'm not making this up. I'm not injecting anything here. You can just look at the words and see what they are. So the seasons are affected by the celestials. Every purpose is affected by the celestials. And if we are here for a purpose, which we will go on to see, it means that this is also under the celestial bodies, under the astrologer. Ecclesiastes 3 and 2. It says, there's a time to be born. Time, there's a time, literally a time. And that's one of the things that we use in the human design. The specific time that you were born, we use those things to measure energies to see where you line up so that you will know what is the best protocol for you in terms of making decisions. And that word time is the Hebrew word eth, and it means, of course, time. It means now, when, after, always, certain, continually, evening, long, due, season, so long as, even, evening, noon, tide. It has meal there, what time, when. All right, so basically, there's a specific time that God chose each and every one of us to be born. And it's a unique time. And I think that is such a significant thing. And of course, we're talking about being born, which is your lad to bear young. So there's a time, specific time that God has chosen under the celestial bodies, under the astrologer, to be born, to bear young, which means to beget, etc., 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 right? So bring forth child, etc., etc., etc. So why did I come here? Because this is a significant part of the human design. And if these things are true, if there's a time and there's a season and there's a purpose for everything under the celestial bodies, under the heavens, under the astrologer, that these things do affect how time and life runs in the earth, then we could deduce that when God selected you and I to be born at a certain time, it's for a particular purpose, under heavens, right? under the heavens. And then it goes on to say a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up. All of these things are significant because they are all affected and they are all under the astrologer. They are all under the celestials. All right, so hope that makes some sense to you guys. Let's take a look at an example of that. Jeremiah just kind of jumped into my mind there when God spoke to Jeremiah when he was calling him, right? And look at here, Jeremiah 1 and 4. Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. So we see in here that even before we were born, God knew us. And that connects sort of with the human design, because how it's taught is that, and again, this is biological as well too, by the time you are about 4 to 6 months in your mother's womb, there is really never any movement at all inside of there. But by the time there's about 4 to 6, there's movement beginning to take place. And based upon the teaching of human design, that is actually when the unconscious comes into the body. The unconscious, it comes into the human body, and that is where movement begins to happen. And then your mommy feels her belly moving, or she feels a kick, right? And I suspect that moms will probably be kind of in tune as to when that first movement started to happen. Now, I'm not a mother, so I don't know. I've never bare children. Well, I have a daughter, but I didn't carry her, right? But it's something I probably have to ask my wife about. When was she aware of that particular initial movement? When did that happen? And then from the time when you are born, you come out of your mother's womb, that is when the personality or the conscious design comes in. And now you begin to be shaped by the environment. And again, as we look at design, the human designs, we see there are open centers, there are defined centers, there are open channels, there are closed channels. And again, that is where the relationship comes in, where people can influence us, whether it be positive or negative. And the goal in life is to line ourselves up to making the right decision so that the right people can come in and close those circuits. And so now your life is now fulfilled, relationships are fulfilled, etc., etc. So we're kind of going to be doing that a little bit today. So we're going to be looking at Abraham and David. And guys, it's not going to be exhaustive. It's just to highlight different people in the Bible that God chose, and they had to sort of learn how to go about aligning themselves so that they can hear from the Father and do what it is he desires. And so now their lives now becomes a model for all of us, right? Because they lived a life of fulfillment. And so let's jump into the book of Genesis, right? So we're going to go to Genesis. And we're going to go start off with Genesis chapter 12. And we're going to go from verses 1 to 4. And it says here, now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, and unto a land that I will show you. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So Abraham departed. He departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abraham was 70 and 5 years old when he departed out of Haran. So we've seen here a unique situation. And again, guys, looking at Abraham way back then, I would almost suspect, because again, this is really, really close to the beginning of time, right? So it's like Abraham, he knew his great grandfather Noah, right? So it's like there's a lot of sensitivity to the spirit realm. There's a lot of consciousness happening there. There's a lot of in-tuneness happening there, where he could discern the voice of the Father, because he's aligned. We don't know what he was, whether he was a generator or manifester, but we've seen that he's getting some type of instruction, and he's obeying that instruction, which I like to call following the yellow brick road. So he departed as that voice spoke to him and told him to get out, and he took that pathway, and let's see what begins to happen. So let's go into, and we're going to look at verses 10 here, which was super interesting, because when you begin to follow your voice, when you begin to follow your strategy, and you begin to make those decisions, you might even tell a lie, and it turns out into a blessing. Now, I'm not saying to go and lie. All we just encouraging people, find out your design, make the decisions that benefit and that benefits you as a person, in the sense that it resonates with who you truly are and not what others want you to be or they are projecting on you to become. And regardless of the path that you go down, it may look bad, but it's actually you are on the right pathway. So look at this. Genesis 12 and 10. And it says, and there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. So Sarai was she was real good looking, right? Real hot girl thing. So Abraham was aware of that, and I think Sarai, like she as well, was aware of that. So he says here, therefore it shall come to pass that when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Verse 13, say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. So Abraham is saying to Sarai, listen, when we go into Egypt, you watch me, you're bad, you look real good. So we know when these people see you, they're going to fall in love with you, and they're going to think that you are my wife, and they're going to execute me, and they're going to take you. So say that you are my sister for my sake and for my life, right? Because I don't want to be murdered. 12, I'm 14, well, unalive, right? Gotta avoid saying certain words here on the YouTube spaces. 14, and it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. All right? I'm tempted to look up this word fair here, right? You see beautiful, beauty, comely, goodly, pleasant. So yeah, Sarai was real good looking, like my wife, right? Anyway, verse 15. And so the princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. And a woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake, and he had sheep, oxen, and he asses, and men servants, and maid servants, and she asses, and camels. So clearly, she worked with the plan, right? Sarai said, yeah, that's my brother. He says, that's my sister. And again, Pharaoh saw her, and she was amazing, and he entreated Abraham well and gave him stuff. Now watch this. Verse 17. So this is Abraham, again, chose to listen to that voice, and now he's on a journey. He's on the yellow brick road. And now things are happening, right? Whether this is right or wrong is not the issue here. The issue here is that he's following his design. So the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she is thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister, so I might have taken her to meet a wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. Now something amazing is going to be happening here. Look at verses 13 and 1 and 2. It says, And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. So because of that situation, then again, following your design is not about knowing where the next steps are going to lead. It's about following the yellow brick road, and then those doors will be opened up when you reach them. It's powerful, powerful stuff here. And so we see that this whole situation and scenario resulted in Abraham now becoming very rich, because Pharaoh, when he saw Sarai, and he thought that it was his sister, he blessed him basically and gave him a bunch of stuff, and then told him, listen, that's your wife, listen, get out of here. Because even Pharaoh didn't care about the riches. It's like he just cared about his life, because that plague that hit them was so devastating. It's like, nah, just leave from here. I don't even want to take back what I gave to you. Interesting stuff, right? Interesting stuff. Let's look at another example in verses, same chapter 13. Something really interesting here, right? Again, so look at verses 4. So this is where Abraham journeyed. He came to Bethel and Hai. If you look at verses 13, and it says here, unto the place in verse 3, and now in verse 4, unto the place of the altar, which he had made there at first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Verse 5, and Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Now it does not say that God responded to him. It does not say that here at all. Because he went back to that place where he had initially made that first altar, where he communicated with God, and now he is calling upon the Lord, and the Bible says there's no answer at this point. Now look at why. Look at what happens here. Verses 7. It says, and there was a strife. Now we're talking about misalignment. Not being aligned with your protocol. Not being aligned with your energies, how you were designed to operate. So, and there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzites dwelled then in the land. So again, you are playing on the fence of your not self theme, and once you are operating there, you begin to now create the potential of attracting the wrong people into your life. And back then, you could imagine you don't want a Canaanite or a Perizzite in your midst, because they are going to kill you, especially the fact that, unalive you, especially due to the fact that Abraham is now very, very rich. Now watch this, verse 8. And Abraham said unto Lot, which was very wise, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and your herdmen, for we are brethren. It's very, very wise for him to do that. Let's look at the word strife here. What does that mean? Meribah, it means to quarrel, provocation, strife, not self-theme language, right? Maybe frustration, anger, which is some of the not self-theme. And once you are living inside of that, there's the Perizzites and the Canaanites that they are waiting to infiltrate your life. Really enjoying this. But he says that we are brethren. And he says, is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left land, then I will go to the right. And if thou depart to the right, then I will go to the left. And then Lot lifted up his eyes, and then, go figure, right? It seems as though Lot was probably operating in his not self theme as well too, because apparently he looked up and saw Sodom and Gomorrah and saw that looked beautiful to him. I was going to say, right? Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. And then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves, the one from the other. And if you know the story, Lot ended up in Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? So it's so important to remain in your self-theme, understand your protocol, so that you could remain in alignment. And here's the beautiful thing that happened next in verses 14. And the Lord said unto Abraham, all of a sudden the Lord shows up. But when strife is removed, when you begin to move away from your not self-theme, and you embrace who you are, your self-theme, and you align yourself with who you are, how you were truly meant to function, all of a sudden the Lord speaks to Abraham. Yeah? So I hope this is sounding good, guys. I also want to cover David. I'll cover David in our next session because I don't like these things to be long and drawn out. So we'll stop here, because I don't want this to be too long and drawn out. I try to keep it like about 30 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit longer it might go. But I'm going to look at David in our next session. And as we're covering these things, guys, the point is that we're looking at making better quality decisions. But we first have to know who we are. What is our best protocol? The best way for us to go about making decisions, so that we line ourselves up. The right people who's supposed to come into our life will come in to add value. And again, just as we saw with Abram, which later on became Abraham. And again, there's so much stuff we could cover with Abram, but we try to keep it simple, keep it neat, keep it short. You would see that even in the midst of him telling a lie, God worked it out to his benefit, where he left Egypt rich with silver and gold and cattle and all of this stuff. So guys, like I always say, if you find value in this information, don't hesitate, like, share it, subscribe it, guys. And if you want to get your own personal assessment done, my information will be at the end of this video. I'm your trusted life and business coach, helping people overcome those obstacles, making high quality decisions so that their life could be one of great quality, that they can find fulfillment and absolute joy in. So guys, we're going to catch you on the next one. Dwayne Alleyne, over and out. Take care. Bye-bye.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The Human Design Project is a framework for self-discovery and personal insight, not a definitive science. Our analysis is based on publicly available information and should not be considered factual or absolute. We do not claim to know the private thoughts, experiences, or personal beliefs of any individuals discussed. Furthermore, our discussion is not intended to defame, mislead, or misrepresent any public figure. We respect their privacy and contributions to society. Any insights shared are speculative interpretations meant to foster discussion, self-reflection, and a deeper understanding of human design concepts. Listeners are encouraged to explore these ideas with an open mind and conduct their own research. Contact life and business coach Dwayne J, Alleyne at 868-333-8048 to conduct your complimentary assessment today.